in. Meanwhile, we'll see if I can get it fixed. All right, we ready to roll? Yeah?
Okay.
You all ready? Okay, Ayin Hey Amud Aleph, right on the top, ain't telling us a pesach.
Okay.
You can't roast the korban pesach, right? That's what we got up to. Is that right? Is that what we got up to?
Yeah,
that's what we got up to.
I'm listening to the share now.
Yeah.
The Daf.
Okay, so ain't telling us a pesach, right? So you're not allowed to. The Mishna says you're not allowed to roast the korban pesach, and then it says that then it brings a story with Tevi Abdoi that he told him to do to do it on an askala, right? So it's an interesting Gemara. So Maisa Lister, you brought us Maisa the steer. First you said you can't do it, and then it said that he did it. So for Surah Master, there's something missing from the Mishnah. This is what it's saying. The im askala menukeves muttar. If the askala has holes in it, then it's muttar. So what does that mean? So I thought when I learned the Gemara originally, so it's just you're roasting it straight on the metal grates like a barbecue. Rashi says that's not the case because you're not allowed to have the metal touching the meat. What it is, it's on a spit that's right on top of the metal. And what's the chiddush? Who cares if there's metal under the spit, right? I mean, if you have the animal roasting and 2 inches below it, you have a metal grate. Who cares, right? What should be the problem? So Rashi is saying, no, we're not worried about it. Because there's enough air going through the grate. It's got to have holes in the grates. If it's a straight piece of metal, then it's not going to be good. It has to have holes in the grates, and that's what it means, right? Okay. So V'amar of Tzadok, my spirit of Gamaliel, She'amar l'tevi al de tevi tzleilan was the pesach ala haskala menukeves on a haskala that has a hole in it. Okay. Good. V'aminer of Chinana bar Idi mir of Ada bar Ava. Tana shesiku beklipe arlo. It's an oven that was heated up with klipe arlo. We had this in the second para. Meaning pieces of wood from arlo, which is awesome. The garfu, but there the whole shaila was, is that called being nene? The fire, it's burning up, right? It is burning up. So is that called being nene or not? That was the shaila there. Here the shaila is that you got rid of it. You got rid of all the wood, and now there's just heat left in the oven. So is that considered being nene? So Tana Shesiku Baklipe or the Garfu Va'afabai as a pas, and you swept it out and you baked bread in there. The Divrei Oyster Mouse. So according to the one that says it's also, what's the din? So Malay Hapas Muteris. They said to him the pas is mutter. Right? Because he's clearly saying that's not, you're no longer benefiting from the arla. Once you get out all the wood, you're not benefiting from the arla. So the Amar Lay, from our Mishna, Amar Rab Chinana, Sava, Amar Rab Asi, Amar Rab Yachan, Tanner Shesiku V'Garfu, well, it's not really our Mishna, but it has to do with our Mishna. So an oven that you heated up, and you took out the coals, and you roasted the korban pesach, that's not called tzli eish. Shenamar tzli eish shtepam. It says tzli eish twice. Time at the Gali Rachmana tzli eish shtepam. The reason that we say that it's not a good cooking or roasting is because it says tzli eish. The Torah had to say tzli eish twice. If it wouldn't be the Torah telling you can't do it, then I would think that a regular oven is tzli eish. If it's tzli eish, then if it was the heat came from arla, then it's also. No, the Torah was magalit from there, and we learned it out there. Then we learned it out from the korban pesach, and then we learned it to everything else. Viva is saying, or a different teretz, awesome time in the cost of Rahman tzli eish shtei pamim. There, that's because the Torah wrote tzli eish 2 times. Although the cost of Rahman tzli eish shtei pamim wouldn't say it 2 times. Hava mina eish kap Rahmana vafilu garfu nami tzli eish. So you would think that the Torah is makbid on eish, and even if you swept it out from all the coals, it would still be tzli eish. Aval hacha ha'etzadi surah kap Rahmana v'halesnu. By Arlo, all the Torah was worried about was that you shouldn't get hana straight from the wood, and that you don't have. The whole lesson, you don't have it. So therefore, the chiddush is that no, in both cases, side by korban pesach and side by Arlo, it's not going to be considered. It's not considered the thing. What do you call? No, I'm sorry. By Arlo, the pas is going to be mutter because we say it's not eish, and by korban pesach, it's also not eish. Yeah. Fine. So Tana Rabbanan, chatchu v'nosnu al gabi gacholim. If you went and you cut up pieces of meat and you put it straight on the coals, that's similar to what we learned yesterday. Right? Yesterday we learned about putting things straight straight on the coals, and whether that's without the blood or not. So it was actually worse to put it straight on the coals than to put it further than that, meaning on above it. So Rebbe says no, putting it straight on the coals it's kliesh. So Ramile Rabachtuye Baramile Rachista Miyom Rebbe Gachalom Eish Ninu. Does Rebbe really say that coals is considered eish? And then I'll ask you a stira, makas eish. Michvas eish, I'm sorry. Every time I look at this Gemara, I say makas eish. Right? Michvas. Taras, you there?
Yes, Hadron Alach, Meseptus Michvas, Hadron Alach.
Right, remember that? Well, here's Michvas. There's a joke that a guy made a see him on makas for the 9 days. Go tell him, say to him.
I think it was Avi Small or Mark Friedman. They were collecting, they had the raffle, the Shayoshev raffle, that the Bachrim, the original raffle that was Taka the Bachrim created, not an organization, whatever, we're recording. But anyhow, they went to a modern bungalow colony, and there's a huge barbecue going on, and they said, oh, there's a siyum, and they hear the guy, Hadron Alach Mesechtas Michvas, Hadron Alach. They never heard of Michvas.
Well, Yaakov, maybe the guy was doing the joke like Shlomo did with your father.
What was the Rahar?
Ron Reed of Irvin.
Maybe, but here it is that I just did the opposite because I read it Makas and it's Michvah.
Right.
And it's like the 10th time today I did this, but okay. Okay. So anyway, Ramin will ask us to, right? Again, Rebbe is saying that it's Tli Eish. You mean you're allowed to put it on coal. Or a minute, ask you, Michvas Eish. So there's a type of tzaras that comes from a burn. You have a burn, somebody has a burn, and then it grows back strange. So that could be a type of tzaras. So Michvas Eish, ainly Nichva Be'eish. That only tells me that it's a type of tzaras that comes from an actual burn from actual fire. Nichva Begachelet. So let's say it came with a burn from a coal. The remets is ashes, the sid with mud, the sid reseach, hot mud, the kfasim reseach, also types of all these different types of things that you heat up. Hold over above minar, anything that came from fire. Lasuye chameor, and that includes water coming from fire. Minayin, how do you know that if saras grows on a burn from those things that would be a crown? Michva riba. It says michva twice. So now the Gemara is saying the same thing as we said before. Time is the Rabbi Rahman of michva. The reason why the Torah said is because it says michva. If it wouldn't be that the Torah includes all types of burns, you would think that the cholam is not eish. Now it's important to remember this because there's going to be a teretz on Amud days. The Gemara goes off on a tangent and it gets back to this. Again, the order of the Gemara was michvas eish, shenichva be'eish, nichva begacheles, remet, sid retech, kfasim reseach, v'chol davar, right? So gacheles is just mixed in with the rest of them. Ravina is going to change the order on Amud Beis. But whatever it is, the Gemara is saying that it says michva, and that's why the Torah is telling you gacheles. Otherwise, you would never think that gacheles is eish. So how could Rebbe say that cooking the korban pesach on coals is considered eish? We don't need the pasuk to include wood coals. No, it's talking about metal. Wood coals is about the wood. Metal, coals that come from metal, right? I guess the metal breaks down, then that's a problem. So then what says, metal is not fire, but by a bas kohen who's chayav misa, to start off, she gets streifa. You make the metal, what do you call it? The lead, and they pour it down her throat, right? Hot lead. So you see that's metal, and that's called fire, right? It's called streifa. The Shani also it says with fire to start. The start of the rabbis called streifas avois min eish. That's coming to include any streifas that come from eish. That's why bas kohen accounts. For kol shekain eish, the Gemara says for kol shekain eish atzma. Then it's kol shekain, that fire itself you should be able to kill her with. V'nakaf lo chavilis moras v'niklo. It's a very interesting choice. Why don't you put the chaviles moras, branches, and put them around, which is what they did to Chanina ben Terajim, where they put sponges around him. So why don't you just burn her that way? Right? Because fire is fire. Why does it have to be what do we call it? Lead. I don't know. He's learned not streifa serve from Bnei Aaron, from another one of the Yumala Halan streifa neshama of a guf kayim. There the neshama burned, but the So the neshama burned, that the body stayed whole. Afkan Sreifa, it's the Sreifa's neshama v'guf. Here too, when you pour lead into the bas kayin, Sreifa, the insides burn out, but the body stays whole. So that's how we learn it out. And that's why it's supposed to be lead. But never lechamayar. Okay, so why don't we burn her with hot water? So we say Mishna to Rav Nachman. It says you have to love your friend like yourself. You have to choose a proper misa, right? And nobody would want to have a misa being burned with hot water. Lead is much more humane. That's what the Gemara is saying. Now that we say Rav Nachman, so what do you need Gzeira Shava for? We're going to do the most humane thing to do. So why do you need Gzeira Shava to tell you not to do other misas? So Amri, you love Gzeira Shava. So we say no. It wouldn't be for Gzeira Shava. How mina Sreifa Shama v'Guf Kayim love Sreifa? I would think that if the body doesn't burn, then that's not called Sreifa. V'imashum the Rav Nachman, and if it's because of Rav Nachman, Nefesh lo Chavila is Moiras Tuva. And if it was Rav Nachman, why don't you just put a lot of wood, and she'll burn very fast, and then it's not going to be such a difficult misa. Kamash know that it has to be done with the lead. So the it says elevation, at least, and then what do you need fire for? Meaning, what do you need the word fire? That's just to exclude lead, meaning naturally hot lead. I don't know what that is exactly. You take naturally hot lead out of the water, out of the ground, I guess. It has to be lead that you heat up with fire, not naturally. So anytime the Torah says ba'esh tisarv l'rabis kol sreifa, so habois me chamas machmas eish, is that coming to include any sreifa that comes from eish? Eshu v'hagabi parim hanesrofim. So there's something called the par helam dover, that if the Kohen Gadol forgets the halacha or the Sanhedrin forgets the halacha, they have to bring a par that gets fully burnt. Right? You have to burn them on wood with fire. The Tanya be'esh, and it says with fire and not with mud. And not with hot mud. And not with what do we say that was? Lime or whatever those things are. Oh no, lime is sid. Gafsis is whatever. Another thing that gets heated up. So they said to him, there it says be'esh, and then it says burn. The rabbis call sreifas abois machmas eish. That's coming to include any sreifa that comes from eish. Here it says, and you burn it on wood with eish. The besaif eish comes after the sreifa. The main report tells us is the eish in midiachrin. So it's coming to tell us that these korbanos, the parahelam davar, the paramanasrafim, which was what they're called, have to have dafka eish and nothing else. So Gemara says, what do you mean? There it also says streifa, the end of siv, al shefach hadeshin yisaref. You have to put it on place where the pile of ashes is. So Amriya, who yisaref, tani yisaref al pisha ain't sham deshin. Yisaref al pisha hitzas ar beruba. No, it's telling us that even if there's no ashes where they're supposed to burn it, still you burn it. Meaning it's not dafka that you have to have ashes. It's better to have ashes there, but you don't have to. So even if there's no ashes, and even if the fire went on most of the what do you call it, of the animal, you still have to make sure that it's fully burned. I mean, you can't just leave it alone when it's mostly burned. Fine. Now Ravina again. Now what the whole stira was, we had the stira from the Bas Koyin, and we had the stira to pesach. So then Ravina saying a different thing. Ravina Amar Korach V'Tani, take all those examples of different types of fires and combine them. Michvas eish. Oh, I said it right. Michvas eish. Ainli ela shenichva. I'm sorry, the tzaras. I said Bas Koyin. I meant the tzaras. Ainli ela shenichva be'eish. This is ubagacheles. This is only telling you if anybody gets tzaras from a burn that came from fire and coals. Nichva beremet besid reseach ubegavsas reseach hold over above machos or lasuye chamei or all types of fire, including water. Minayin. How do you know? Tamalar michva. So therefore, he's taking gacheles. Ravina took gacheles and moved it up next to eish. So therefore, it was pasha to the Gemara that it was always going to be eish. Okay, Rava Rami. Now Rava asked a different theory. Rava Rami. Biyama Rebbe gacholim ikru eish. Does Rebbe say that gacholim are called eish? But a minute less, you stira gachale yachol ayman. So you would think now there's different types of coals. We had this in Shabbos. There's coals that could be fully burning, and then you can have coals that are almost going out. Right? So gachole, Ramin al Yisiru gachole yochol aimus. When it says coals, you would think that even if they're going out, tamaloimar eish. So therefore, it says eish. Eish yochol shall have it. So if it's eish, that means it has to be with a fire, not cold. Tamalor gachole. It says no, it has to be cold, not fire. Okay, so maybe you bring it from coals that are flickering. That's the type of flickering, meaning the coals are still giving off a lot of fire. Well, gufa kasha, but that's itself a kasha. Amr gachale yochel aymemois. You have a stira in itself. It says gachale. You would think that it means aymemois amaloi fushois. Eish. So you see that loy fushois considered fire, meaning aymemois is going out. So then it means loy fushois is mamish eish. So then aim sefer. Then it's a stira to the sefer. Eish yochel shall have it. If it says eish, you would think that it's fire. Tamaloi mergachale. So therefore it says cold. Alma filu loy fushois lav eish. So then if that's the case, then even loichashois is not eish. That's too much. It needs to be coals that are not necessarily giving fire, right? And this is for all the barbecuers, right? When you barbecue with coal and not with gas, right? So there's types of coals that are giving off fire, and then there's coals that are just giving off the heat. Fine. It says gachale. You would think whether it's aymemois or whether it's loichashois, meaning coals are coals. Tamalemer eish. So it says eish, eish yochel shall have it. So if it's eish, you would think that shall have it, a flame dafka. Tamalemer gachale says no coals. Okay, so maybe even not loichashois. You bring it from loichashois. Then the Gemara says but kasha l'Rebbe. The bottom line is coals are not considered fire, and that's a kasha on Rebbe. You said that coals are considered fire. From a Rabbiya Taret Hachi. Rabbiya says say this term. Gachale yochel aymemois loichashois. You would think that coals is aymemois and not loichashois. Tamalemer eish. So it says eish. Eish yochel rotza shall have as yavi rotza kachelas yavi. You would think if it's eish, you would think that if you want, you bring it as a fire, or you could bring it as coals, whichever way you want. Meaning you have the option. Tamalemer gachale. So it says coals. Okay, so maybe even a loichashois. You have to bring it from the what they call. Excuse me. You bring it from the coals that are still giving off burning. That's Omar Rava. So Rama Rabba. Rotza gachelas yavi rotza shalheves yavi. If you want, you bring coals, and if you want, you bring the shalheves. Shalheves below gachelas heichi mishkachas. So how do you get a fire without coal? Right? He said if you want, you bring it as a flame, or you bring it as a coal. How do you ever have a flame without a coal? So the answer is going to shafya lamona mishchavasi by nura. It's talking about where he smeared a. I think the way they put on. You guys used to burn hats. By chasanas, they used to put something on it and made like the hat burning. So the same thing, you put on some sort of So here you put on right. So you put something on it and then you lit it up, something metal, right? So the Gemara says, why don't you the pasuk tell you that fire is no good to burn the param on the sofim? You would never make a fire like that in front of a king, right? Because it makes a lot of smoke. So this is what the pshat is. You would think that it should be going out, the flames should be going out and not actually burning. It says fire. You think you bring half and half. So but if that's the case, once you bring it, if you bring it half, then by the time you get to the mizbeach, it'll be fully cold. It says you should bring the whole shovel full on the mizbeach. It shouldn't be coals when you get to the mizbeach. It should be coals before that. I mean, you think you save some time. I'll start the fire and then I'll carry it in the shovel, and by the time we get to the mizbeach, it'll be cold. No, before you scoop up the coals from the fire, it's got to be cold. It's got to be cold. It can't have any fire. Then the Gemara says, "Iboilu." We have this Gemara in Brachos and in Shabbos. Iboilu. Is it with an aleph or an ayin? So when you talk arozim loyamamu began elikim. The arozim, what is it called? Cedars can't make his glory go get shvach. Began elikim in the gan of Hashem. So you see, amamu means shvach, and it's like to make it not so strong. and that's what he called it, and that's called, and that's with an ayin, not with an aleph. Okay, it's a little confusing, this stuff, but the bottom line is that we do say that gachelis is considered, gachelis is what's necessary, not fire, and not cold that are going out. Okay, so Dr. Mishna. This next Mishna with the Gemaras, of course it's a Friday, so it's an important Gemara. It's Friday's daf, but okay, what could he do? Noga b'charsoi shel taner. Let's say the korban pesach touched the wall of the taner. Yiklif as mekami, you have to peel the place because it touched. Remember, we said the korban pesach has to be roasted, right? So if it touches the wall, so then that's going to cook from the wall. So that's a problem. We'll see in the Gemara exactly what this is. Not of me right. Let's say the rightive, right? The juice falls on the cheres, the chazar elav, and then it bounces back, which is what it does, right? The juice hits the wall of the oven and then bounces back onto the korban pesach. Yitalis mekaymot. So the first part of the mission is yiklife. You have to peel it. The second one is you have to take an atila. Now yiklife, a peel. I should have said this before. A peel is basically when you're peeling an orange, right? So sometimes people want to peel an orange and they want to get the whole peel off without it coming off in pieces. So you have to peel it a little thick, whatever thickness you would need to be able to peel an entire peel off of the orange intact. That's the thickness of a klifa. A gitolis mekaymed, which is called netila, that's the thickness of a finger. So it's about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch. Right? I mean, it's much stricter. So if it touches the wall of the oven,
is the goal of peeling it to get to the orange, or the goal of peeling it is?
What are you saying?
Meaning you can zest an orange or a lemon because you want some of that peel, or you could try to get to the orange.
No, the point is, it's just the thickness. It's just what that thickness is. It doesn't really make a difference what you're getting it for. It's just the amount that you have to peel off. Right, what you're going to see on
That's what I'm asking. What's the amount? Meaning, is the amount just a tiny drop?
Yeah, it would be the amount. In order to peel off the entire peel at once, you need to have a little bit of thickness. Right.
Okay.
So that's how thick a klipa is. That's how thick a klipa is. Well, it can't be thin. It's got to have some thickness to it.
You mean just to start the peel? I got it. Okay.
Right.
It can't be the klipa of an egg.
It has to be able to peel the egg the entire thickness in one peel. You need to do it a little thicker that way. I don't know how it works with an egg. Right? But that's what you have to do. Right? But netila is much more. See, when the cheres, the gravy bounces off the cheres and back onto the korban pesach, you have to take off, because now that's considered cooked, not roasted. You have to take off a netila, which is the thickness of a finger. Right? So that's the second case. Not of meroy tve'elasayos. Let's say it falls onto flour. Now I have no idea what this flour is doing over there, but this flour near the korban pesach, then you have to take a whole handful. Right? Fine. Tachu b'shemen trumah. If you soak the korban pesach with shemen trumah, oil from trumah. Why this happened, I don't know. If it's a chaburas kehanim, so yoichlu, they're allowed to eat it because it's trumah. Im shel Yisrael. If it's a yid, im chayhu, if it's raw, yadichenu, just wash it. Which we learn out a big thing from that, right? If you take treif that's cold and you put it down on something that's I'm saying if it's raw, then you just wash it off, right? We're going to see in the Gemara that it's talking about cold, then you just wash it off. There's nothing wrong with it, right? V'im tzlihu, if it's roasted, yikleif as a chitzon, then you just peel off the outside, because when it's roasted, like we said yesterday, there's cracks in it, and therefore we're afraid that it gets in a little bit, but not much, just a klipa, right?
Why are you assuming if you smear it's cold?
Because the Gemara is going to say. But it's saying it's raw. So that's chai means raw.
I understand, but
right?
You smear. Who said maybe it's hot oil?
No, but what's the oil? Okay, so we're going to see that in the Gemara. Right? Then tzli who yiklef as a chitzon, then you peel the outside. Sachu b'shemen shel ma'aseh sheni. Lo yasenu damim al b'nei chabura. If you smeared it with shemen of ma'aseh sheni, then don't sell it. Rashi changes the lashon here to lo yimkereno. That's the next word. Lo yasu damim al b'nei You don't make the dam on the b'nei chabura. She'ein paid in Ma'aseh Yerushalayim, which did we change to ein meichid. Meaning in Yerushalayim, you're not allowed to be paid in Ma'aseh Sheni. Only in outside of Yerushalayim. And you have your fruits, so you want to carry up to Yerushalayim. It's too hard to carry up the fruits. So what you do is you're paid it onto money, but you can't do that once this stuff is in Yerushalayim. So if this oil is in Yerushalayim, then you're not allowed to be paid it, right? Okay, so those are the cases in the Mishnah. The Gemara says itma, right? This is an important this next rule is as important a rule as you're going to get in Hilchos Kashrus. Cham l'soy cham, if hot food falls into hot food, treif into kosher, divrei hakol assur, everybody holds it's assur. Sign-in, cold falls into cold, divrei hakol muttar, everybody holds it, that's muttar, right? I remember we brought this up yesterday. I have to tell you, I can't even make it up. At around 11:30 last night, I get a voice message from somebody, and it's so rare, but it was amazing that it was the daf that we're talking about. The kid spilled hot cocoa onto his schnitzel, onto cold raw chicken, which is what we said the case yesterday, and then somebody did it. Cold, it's okay because it's cold and it's smooth. Right, so cold to cold, everybody holds his muttar. Cham l'soy tzaynim, it's cham.
Maybe that kid's the youngest
It's
person
Hadagoyzen,
learning the
Hashem is Mekayim.
No, maybe that kid is the youngest person learning the daf. He's younger than
maybe.
No, I said
maybe.
the Hadagoyzen, Hashem is Mekayim. You said the example.
Right, I'm not saying that I'm saying the oil on the top is tzaddikim, not me.
Okay.
No, it happened with the Lawrence food distribution. They have chocolate milk in there, and they also have chicken. A lot of times, stuff spills around.
Yeah, they did that. That happened. Right, that happened a while ago, right?
I'm just saying, in my bag, you see some stuff like that. But if it's all cold,
yeah, that's No, it happened a few of them ago, I think, right?
What happened?
They put in chopped meat. They put in chopped meat, and the chopped meat. What was it? I don't remember something. I got a bunch of questions about it. The chopped meat. What did it do? It melted down on top of onions. I think that's what it was. It melted down on top of onions, but it was cold. Anyways, so those are basic, right? Hot into hot is the problem. Cold into cold is muttar. But cham l'soy tzaynim and tzaynim l'soy cham, hot into cold and cold into hot, that's a big machlokes. Rav Amar Eloi Gover. Now, I don't know how they knew this. You have to be a scientist, right? Rav says that the top overcomes the bottom. And Shmuel says that the bottom comes over the top, right? Meaning the heat, which heat dominates what? Does the heat from the top heat, or does the bottom one heat it, right? So Rav says that the top one is, and Shmuel says that the bottom one is. Tanan. So now the Gemara is going to try and prove it from our Mishna. Tanan. Not of meroit ve'al cheres. Let's say you dropped gravy on the cheres, right? So what does the Mishnah say? The chazer olav, and he turned it back. Yitalas mekayme. You have to remove the plate. The top crocodile, the cheres seinenes. It must be talking about earthenware that's cold, right? That's mekayme, right? It's good according to Rav because he says that the top always overpowers the bottom. Therefore, you take the place, right? So Bishlam of the Rav Domer Eloi Gavar. It's good according to Rav who says Eloi is Gavar. Shemachi Yitulus Mekayim. That's why you have to take the plate, the top. The Azul Raitiv Miraseach Leilacheres. The Raitiv goes and heats up the earthenware. Bahadar Cheres Miraseach Leilaraitiv. And then the Cheres goes and it heats back up the Raitiv. Right? And then when the liquid goes back into the korban pesach, it's roasting the pesach because of the heat of the cheres. Amud the cheres was the heat of the cheres. Right? It says it has to be tzli esh and not anything else. Right? So, meaning according to Rav, it's not a problem because we're assuming that the cheres is cold. So then the heat goes on top of it, then it's a problem. But Shmuel says again, if you have hot that falls on cold, the cold overpowers the hot. So the cheres is cold. The kurim make a little reitiv, so the cheres should cool off the reitiv. What do you have to take the place? Again, according to Rav, that the top overpowers the bottom. So then the gravy, the hot gravy, heats up the cheres, and it goes bounces back into the korban pesach. So therefore, it's not cooked. But according to Shmuel, the bottom is always overpowering the top, so it's cold. Like we just said, cold is nothing. So the Gemara answers, because I'm Rav Yomi on Shmuel, but Silas Ritzach is talking about Silas that's hot. Right? The case in the Silas, which is the third case in the Mishnah, where the Silas is boiling hot. So we're saying here too the cheres is hot. So it means it was probably the cheres of the wall of the oven. So then the Gemara wants to bring another raya from the case in the Mishnah. So if the raitiv goes on the flour, you can this mekayme. So you peel the plate, right? Not peel. You take a handful. Besides that, we thought that it's talking about cold flour. So according to Rav that says the top overpowers the bottom, you can this mekayme. That's where you have to peel a whole area. Because the gravy heats up the flour. The hadra hadrinu v'hadra silas today, because then it heats up all the flour around it, and then it goes that silas and then it heats up the gravy. The kamasi right the machal coming to the silas, and now the gravy gets heated up from the silas. So it has to be roasted, and it can't be anything else. That makes sense according to Rav. But according to Shmuel, it says the bottom overpowers it, and the flour is cold. So let's keep in the sin. And since the flour is cold, it's going to cool it off. Why do you have to be kaimis? Meaning the gravy from the korban pesach, which is hot, falls on the flour, which is cold. The cold wins, right? The bottom always wins according to Shmuel. So what's the problem? The cold overpowers the hot, makes it into cold, and now it bounces back on the korban pesach, but it's cold. So Rav Yomi Shmuel, no. Like we just said, it's talking about where the flour was hot. Fine. Third case in the Mishnah. If they put oil of the trumah on top of the korban pesach, in kaburas kehanim yaiklu. If it's a kaburas kehanim, they eat it. And so Yisrael, if it's a Yisrael, im chayu, if it's raw, yadifenu, he has to wash it. In fliu, if it's roasted, yiklek as a chitzon, so then you have to peel the outer one. So Bishlam al-Rav Domer Eloi Gavar. So it's good according to Rav that he says that the top one overpowers. That's why it's enough with klipa misham dila. It's fine in who the top one is cold, and therefore, and the bottom overpowers it. El Shmuel Domer Tatogava. According to Shmuel, says the bottom overpowers. Even the chamhu, since it's cham mivla bala, it absorbs an amai. So why sagili beklipa mitzvah legamri? Why is it enough with a klipa? It should be totally assur. Well, it says shani sicha the mashu ba'almahu davida. Sicha is just a mashu ba'alma, so therefore it's not a problem. Okay, well I think we'll stop here because I want to be able to do the next Gemara with a little more clarity. So all right, so I guess we'll stop here tomorrow. What time? 4:20. 4:20. Does the 4:20 make sense?
Sounds good.
Or later? 4:30?
Okay.
No, 4:30. No, 4:20.
4:20.
Too late. Okay. Okay, so
4:20 is
4:20. I'm sorry. All right. Sorry about the early. All right.
Okay. Steuer.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good enough.
Danke sehr.
Yaakov.